Well, welcome to our panel discussion on Jimmy Lai's life. We're here to talk about his fight for democracy in Hong Kong and how even today he's still fighting. So I just want to welcome up our speakers on this important documentary. My name is Jacob Pimentel. I'll be your moderator, and I'm an engineering and physics student at Vanguard.
I'm Luke Parker. I'm a business major at Vanguard.
My name's Andrew Allen. I'm a history political science major at Vanguard.
I'm Toby Oliva. I'm a theology student at Vanguard.
I'm Zach Dirksen. I'm a history poli sci student at Vanguard.
Well, today we're just going to start off with 6 questions we came up about this documentary to really just give an insight into our perspective and our thoughts on Jimmy Lau's life and how important his fight is. So to start with our first question, what is your favorite part of the documentary and why?
My personal favorite part of the documentary was the chocolate scene, just because it showed like a simple moment that ultimately like shaped his life. It also kind of revealed like his personal side, making him feel more like a real person instead of just like a political figure. And I feel like that part kind of just reminded me that freedom isn't guaranteed and that all people over the world have to still fight to protect it.
For me, my most favorite part was also the chocolate scene as well, specifically because it was him realizing that there's more to life than what he was living. And it was something simple that we all take for granted. We'll walk into like a Safeway or a Walmart, grab a chocolate bar, eat it, and we're like, oh, we have the ability to do that living in America. But living in China, that wasn't didn't have that same freedom. So it's something we take for granted all the time.
The chocolate part was also my favorite part. It made it feel like it was brought down to human level, person level. That was relatable in a sense, and then just the overall courage throughout the entire film.
Yeah, my favorite part, he said a quote, it was faith removes fear. And I really like that, just because it just kind of shows that, um, if you're on, like, if you know the truth and you're on the winning side and, God's for you, who can be against you? So I just thought that was really cool that he said that.
Okay, coming to our next question. If you could share a cup of coffee with Jimmy Lau, what would you want to talk about?
I mean, if I had to had coffee with him, I would definitely ask him how he was so courageous and stayed so strong, knowing like he could go to prison at any time. I mean, I know that if I could go to prison at any time, I probably wouldn't be so strongly invested as he was. So I think that's pretty cool topic I would want to bring up. And also I would ask him like what his idea of success was and how it changed after experiencing both rich and poor, both sides of that.
For me, I would ask him like what kind of hope he had of trying to save Hong Kong from China, because China's controlled by the CCP, and overall they're not very friendly to the rest of the world, and even less so towards their own people. So I would ask him why he would try and fight so hard for something that ultimately seems like it doesn't have a whole lot of hope. Um, and then ultimately, kind of in pair with that, why he faced the risks that he did for Hong Kong in the first place. And then my final question would be why he didn't start a chocolate company instead of a clothing company. Because, I mean, if chocolate impacted him that much, I feel like it makes a little bit more sense to start one of those. But oh well.
Yeah, on top of Andrew, a sense of hope, or just I'd ask him what his vision was when thinking about Hong Kong and all the people. Um, Another one is just how he was able to stay motivated, whether it was through his faith, which most like it was, but also just the practical things that he did um, to stay motivated.
I would definitely want to talk to him about his like faith journey. I know Dr. Henry talked about it a little bit, but
Okay.
I really want to know just like from him, just really like what were the steps that kind of brought him there. What does he see as like the big parts in his life that made him be able to make this huge decision to have the courage that he did, even while suffering. So um, and just like how he kept calm. I would love to talk about like how he kept calm, because I really appreciate like a really good leader who's able to work well under pressure and just he knows that he's facing imprisonment. So how is he still fighting for this? And then just like on the backside of that, I love my country a lot and I appreciate its freedom. So I would just he didn't really get to experience that before, but now that he has, it's just I would just love to talk about like what freedom means to him.
Yeah, that's awesome. I really like you guys all kind of talked about a little bit of like what he sacrificed and like how he had to be so brave to sacrifice those things. And I think like in certain situations, there's times like that in our lives. So is there something in your life you'd be willing to sacrifice for a cause you believe in?
Yeah, definitely. I think I would be willing to sacrifice my comfort, especially if it's speaking up for what's right for me also. And I think I'd also would accept losing approval from people that I love or people in my life, especially if it that's what it takes and if it's honestly required. So I think I just value the truth more than things like popularity and comfort. So I would be willing to sacrifice these things to stay true to what I believe.
Yeah, for me, I'd be willing to lay my life down for my country because I love my country, and as a result, there have been a lot of people that have laid their lives down to protect the freedoms that we have that we take for granted a lot of the time. And I'd be willing to lay my life down for that. Additionally, I'd also be willing to lay my life down for my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ because at the end of the day, He is the most important thing to me, and I gladly lay my life down to protect that. And then finally, I would be willing to risk my freedom to inspire change. If what I do, if I got locked away for something that I said, but I knew that would inspire change in the country, I would gladly lose my freedom for that.
So this question, I just catered it, just overall to my faith in general. Just I would there's like three main things: reputation, just what obviously, I mean, bad or good reputation, no matter what. But people have opinions, so that's something that you really sacrifice for my faith. And that goes hand in hand with just comfort, and stepping out from the crowd and being set apart. And then obviously, just because Jesus laid his life down first, he's the ultimate sacrifice. So I'd be willing to sacrifice for him.
Yeah, just kind of what you guys are saying. I think just being able to sacrifice just popularity, I think is for telling the truth, I think is really difficult. Especially, when it starts getting closer to you, like close friends and family and but honestly just telling just talking about truth and honesty, I think that's worth more than, even what the people close to you, even what they think about you. Um, and then, sacrificing comfort, um, to stand up for, and to defend my faith, just because it really does shape me. So just, not staying idle and putting myself out there to to just make sure that it's getting stood up for and I'm not just staying silent just because it's comfortable. And then I'd also be willing to give up even opportunities, like even if they're really good opportunities, if they kind of compromise kind of what I believe in my values, even if they're really good opportunities, like making a lot of money or being really happy or something. It's just if they compromise what I deeply believe in, I'm being okay. I'll be okay in dismissing those.
It's good. Kind of taking this anecdote a little more deeper into action. Has there ever been a time where you had to stand up for something you believed in, even when it was difficult?
Yeah, I mean, there's been plenty of times where I've had to defend my faith and stick up for my Lord and I something that's I deeply believe in, and I feel like there's been many times I can't pinpoint one time where I've had a conversation with someone about that topic, but I feel like for me that's probably the main topic that I've had to stand up for and believing in. And I feel like there's also a couple times in me playing sports where I've had to defend a player or defend a player against a coach, which may have damaged relationships. But I mean, standing up for what I believe is something that is like deep ingrained in me. So I think those are some of the times where that's happened.
For me, I've had them in multiple times where I've had to defend my faith from people that have been hostile towards it. Because I'll just say, "Oh, I'm a Christian," and that will instantly spark people to either start asking questions, sometimes with not the most friendly intentions. I've also been times where I've had to defend some other scouts in my Boy Scout troop from some discrimination because of shirts that they wore or just because of the color of their skin. So it hasn't been really great, but those are some examples.
This last past year in high school, my student government teacher, we all loved her, but she was felt like it was running a dictatorship. She made it seem like she had a motto in the class where it was like basically if you guys get more freedom, you also get more responsibility. But for us, it just felt like there's more responsibility and less freedom. And so she would just make promises that she couldn't keep and stuff like that. And so we just had to speak up against her. She ended up staying the same, but it was just something that I had to speak up against. Another one is just times where I've been with friends and they've been gossiping, talking bad about the other ones, and just in those instances where I've had to say something, even if it costed the trust between those friends.
Yeah, I mean, just, very similar to what these guys are saying. Um, the big one is just, being confronted about my beliefs and faith in class, and, it's hard to speak out when it's very unpopular. So, but I've definitely stood up for that, and sometimes it's cost me a few friends or yeah. So, and then there's another one, like also in the sports realm. Um, Sometimes I kind of find myself having to be like the mediator or the peaceful guy when like people are getting upset at officials or the refs like from my team, because I understand that you're standing up for for them, even in if the objective truth is they're not doing good at their job. It's still important to that we respect their authority, and also I've never really had to, but there was this one time specifically where um maybe it got a little bit more physical to defend one of my own teammates from like some talking on the other team. So just because loyalty meant a lot to me, and these are great guys on my team, so I couldn't just let that happen.
That's awesome. What role do you think ordinary people like us can play in standing up for truth and justice, just like Jimmy Lau did?
I mean, I feel like there's three different things what that comes to my mind when talking about what things we could do to stand up for these things. And I think the number one thing for me definitely would be by sharing accurate information. I mean, this can just help in not spreading false stories. And then I think some other things that could play can come into play is also to be consistent and brave and just challenge lies when we see them. And then the third thing I think is just we could vote because I feel like that shapes the future of our communities. So yeah.
For me, I believe we can be make sure to voice our opinions and make our voices heard. Because if you don't stand up for yourself and if you don't tell people what you believe in, obviously not obnoxiously, then no one's going to know what you believe in, and no one can be able to see who supports them. Uh, Biggest thing for me is also having conversations with those we disagree with. America's kind of polarized politically right now, so it's important to be able to have discussions with people you disagree with and be like, at the end of the day, we're all still Americans. Do we have differing opinions? Heck yeah. But at the same time, that shouldn't be something that is the dividing boundary between us. Be able to have the conversations. We can agree to disagree, but at the end of the day, we're all Americans. So we can focus on that.
I'd say having grace for others. It's not like complete grace where everything becomes can just slide. Uh, it's like that even balance of having grace, but also still having truth or still wanting that truth, and giving justice out. Another one is integrity in the small things. It's always like my dad always said, it's always always the little things in life that help and set you apart. Just having integrity in small things so that when the big things do happen, the bigger moments do happen, the integrity that was built on smaller moments comes to play and it's so worth it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think definitely just using like our voices and speaking up when something feels wrong, just because our we have our consciences that tell us what's wrong. Um, because if there's injustice happening, it just keeps happening until someone speaks up against it. Um, I think it was Martin Luther King Jr. that wrote in his letter from the Birmingham jail that you know there's a law above the law, and our conscience tells us that, so we know when something's wrong, and we're obligated to speak out against that. Um, so just when we sit idle and we don't do anything, that's just when the injustice keeps happening, and we don't do anything to do about it. And we have with social media, ordinary people just like us can uh, have a lot bigger voices. So there's definitely no excuse to not take advantage of that platform. And then just educating ourselves on what the truth is, and just using that and using our freedom to vote, I think are very important to influence these decisions like in our country and in our society. just making sure that we're learning and we're coming close to the truth and we know what the truth is, so that way we can act on it.
That's good. I like how you guys all really talked about just speaking up when something feels wrong. And you see that kind of today, like when it comes to protests, the way that people speak out, like through posters and t-shirts. And so just kind of moving on to the documentary, which quote or line from the film would you want to put on like a t-shirt or poster?
A powerful line that I found interesting through this film is I owe freedom my life. I mean, I feel like that's just a huge statement, especially for us Americans, and not only just him, yeah, but also us. I think that we take freedom for granted, and I think that ultimately, if we didn't have freedom, like we would be longing for it, like some of these other like countries and things like that. So I think that we do ultimately owe freedom our life for a lot of things. So I thought that was interesting. Yeah.
For me, the biggest one that I've found interesting was once you've tasted freedom, it's very hard to give it up. Again, going back to his chocolate story, he was living in China, not knowing what life was like outside of it. But the second he had that chocolate and then snuck away to Hong Kong and saw the freedom that capitalism gave, he refused to give it up, and that's why he fought so hard in Hong Kong and to be able to hopefully get their freedom back. So I think that quote I think is really good.
A quote was, "Don't think about the consequences. Do what is right." And obviously, that could be taken out of context. I think it's good to sit and to consider consequences about things you're doing. But when it comes to like doing what's right, and if um, it holds you and stalls you, like that's where I'm agree. Like, yeah, don't think about the consequences. Just do what's right. So
Mine is, very same as Andrew's. Once freedom is tasted, you never want to give it up. I just really like that because, um, like, when you're born with freedom and you have it, you don't really know anything else, and you kind of, abuse it and take it for granted. But, once you have it and you lose it, then you start to realize that it's a whole different ball game that you should have, been grateful when you had the chance. So I like how Jimmy and in this documentary, it's the other way around in his life. He didn't have it to begin with, and then he got it, and then he's like, this is something that I need and is right, and something that I want to fight for. I also loved another quote. It was Jimmy speaking. He said, "I stayed because I love this city too much to leave," and I just thought that was it can be pretty inspirational that we all face adversity and hard times where we are, either like in our own homes or in our neighborhoods or even in our countries. But um, don't take the easy route out and just leave and just leave it for someone else to do. But you know, we're supposed to stay and help fight for what's right in our families and in places that we love. So
It's all really good, guys. Even as we're closing now and like looking more at the end of where we're at now in Jimmy Lau's life, where he's in prison, and it kind of feel like a standstill where Hong Kong's not really progressing anymore into democracy. But I think when even just in this presentation, when we speak of Jimmy Lai's character, I don't think there's any doubt that he's still continuing to fight and still giving up everything on based off his principles of freedom and really wanting the best for his city and Hong Kong. And I think even that can serve as a reminder for the future and the future generation of how we need to be better and we need to stand up for what we truly believe in because we all have certain beliefs, especially with faith, religion, or politics that we truly believe in. And I think Jimmy Lau's life is just a really good reminder and even a hopeful note for the future that there will be more people that will stand up just like him, and he is that role model for how we should do that. So, yeah, thank you guys so much for talking on this important documentary. And even more, thank you for listening. And I hope you guys learned a little bit more about our personal perspectives on Jimmy Lau's life and just how important a figure like this is towards democracy, not just in Hong Kong, but around the world as a representation of how we should act in our faith and our beliefs. So thank you guys so much for watching. Bye.